And while you're sitting there talking about how, yes, queen, oh, black girl magic, that woman, I guarantee you, is going to make a judgment that's going to wreck your life. Hello, good people. It's me. It's been a while. I know seems like I've been away for like forever. But I thought that the recent confirmation hearings for Kentanji Brown Jackson, I think that's how you say it. KBJ, I'll call her. Kentanji Brown Jackson. The recent hearings has provided me a perfect opportunity to expound on some of the things I've been talking about as of late. And um, so I thought I'd just try to do a quick video. I'm going to try to do this in 10 minutes or less. It's probably impossible, but I'm going to give it a whirl. I just have one question, and I want to talk to you who who are Christ followers, those of you who name the name of Christ. Does the scripture where God says, man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart? Take a moment to consider whether that statement has any substantive meaning in our society today. Because I feel like it doesn't. Even amongst people who claim or who name the name of Christ, that text doesn't mean anything, because what I have consistently seen us do is prioritize the outward appearance over and above the heart. Of all of the characteristics that human beings have, race, which it's not even the right term, it's really what we're really talking about is ethnicity, because there's only one race. We all are descendants of Adam. Ethnicity is by far the least significant of our human characteristics. They are least essential to our humanity. This hearing has been eye-opening. Those of you who have been following me, I have recently started a blog, toddthinks.substack.com. So go to that. You can see all my latest thoughts. I'll write about 1 or 2 blogs a week. If I'm feeling really frisky, I'll have a third one in there. But right now I have 4 different articles up. But one thing that I wrote last week was an article called Punching Faces for Jesus. And in it, I write, this is why this KBJ hearing was so kind of right on time, because this thing underscores exactly the point I was making, to the point where I almost, dare I say, look prophetic in my utterances and in the point that I was making. I argue in the piece the way the enemy wants to present himself. He wants to put his words and ideas in the mouths of people that look like victims. This is the idea. And there's a famous scene from the movie Austin Powers, if you've ever seen it, where he punches this lady in the face. Right? So that's the case. That's the idea. Punching faces for Jesus. If it turns out that the lady he punches in the face wasn't actually a lady, but it was a man dressed as a lady, which, now that I think about it, there's so many, there's like 4D chess here. There's so many ways that applies now, because now we have men pretending to be women and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, he turns and he punches this lady in the face. Then he reveals that he goes in the famous line, "That ain't no woman, it's a man, man." And that was the whole idea. So the whole idea is about discernment, about not being afraid to take a punch or to take a swing at somebody just because they look vulnerable or they look like someone who you shouldn't be aggressive with or attack. So this is the enemy's new tactic, is that he wants to put his words in the mouths of people who people are afraid to take a swing at. And this is perfectly illustrated in the KBJ hearings, because here you have senators and different people who are charged to cross-examine and to try to help the American people understand what the ideology of the people who are going to be making some of the most literally some of the most important decisions in the lives of American people. The American people deserve to understand exactly what their ideology is. And here she is being pressed about her actual job, right? Her judgments, the decisions she's made on the bench as a judge. And you got a bunch of morons out here saying that they're attacking her because she's a black woman. Everything about that story was a perfect illustration of my point. Because KBJ, and I'm going to say this is important. Any Christ follower should have serious, serious concerns about her ideology. There's this, I'll try to put it up here somewhere. There's this, little post that's going around Facebook that I've seen on a couple of people's pages where it's basically something like, oh, you had to endure all the ignorance and you stood there with poise and blah, blah, blah. Ignorance and people asking about why you ruled it a certain way, that's ignorant. I mean, I think that's kind of their job. When you have people asking a judge about their judgments and then people say they're attacking them because they're a black woman, that's just moronic. So I wanted to take a moment to just illustrate or just talk about a little bit of the things that they actually were pressing her on. One, her record of extremely lenient sentences for people who are in possession of and viewing child pornography. Now, I want to help you understand how my thought process went into this. Okay, here you have Ted Cruz. He's got all this data, and he says, okay, she is 47% on average on all of the child pornography cases, 47% lower than the prosecution's recommended sentencing. I'm like, okay, well, if you know anything about me, I took that with a grain of salt because, yes, that's true, but that's an isolated fact. And what I was more concerned about was, okay, but how does that compare to other judges? And not that the absolute sentencing in and of itself, not that that doesn't matter, but if the entire judiciary is in the habit of handing out lenient sentences, if that's kind of par for the course for child pornography, then what we have is a systemic problem. We have a problem with the way we view the use of child pornography in the first place. So maybe it's just not something that you can point to her. But what solidified it for me was when he cited, because they tried to make that case, right? Oh, you're cherry picking. One, they didn't cherry pick. They used all of the child pornography cases that she presided over. And two, they also took one of the cases and really drilled down on it. And they could have done this with any of them. And KBJ would never really answer the question, which is another thing. But in the transcript, they have Kentanji Brown Jackson saying out of her own mouth that the charges that this man was convicted of would have typically yielded 72 to 84 months in prison. She said herself the average sentencing for something that man had done was 72 to 84 months, and she gave him, I think, 28 or 27 months. So she gave him almost a third of what would typically be handed out as a sentence for people who had done similar crimes. And not only was that significantly low, but it was significantly lower than what the prosecution had recommended, and way, way lower than what they call the federal guidelines. So you have federal guidelines, you have prosecutor's recommendation, which is oftentimes much lower than the federal guideline, and then you have Kentanji Brown Jackson, which is way, 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 way below that. So this was something that was unique to her. And for some reason, she tends to have a soft spot for people who are watching toddlers be raped. If you're telling me that doesn't concern you, if you're saying that, yes, queen, black girl magic, if you're sitting there doing that crap and you haven't given any thought to the perverse judgment that she is, the ideology. And it's important to underscore it may very well be the case that in her mind, I get it, there's no nefarious intent. She's not like, oh, I want to flood the streets with pedophiles and kiddie porn users. I'm not saying that's her intent. But what you have to understand is that when people have a perverse and wicked ideology, they often think they're doing good and they're doing more harm than good. This is the whole argument around people who are talking about we should abolish the police. I don't really care that these people think that they're doing justice because there's too much incarceration and our system is unjust to people of color. You're putting a bunch of criminals back on the street. You're making it more difficult for people to be safe in their own neighborhoods. I don't care what you think you're doing. I only care about what you're actually doing. They may have good intentions, but I don't want those people in charge because they're morons. And we were talking about the judgment of a person who will sit on the highest court in the land. Their judgment needs to be beyond reproach. And if you're telling me that a woman who would preside over cases where grown men sat there and watched images of children being raped, and she feels some duty to be soft on them, I'm so burdened by that. I'm so burdened. I don't understand. Once again, does the scripture mean anything? Man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart. So there's that. We should be disturbed. That alone, that alone should be enough to say, I don't know about this lady. But she was asked maybe the simplest question in the history of judicial hearings. What is a woman? And this is why I say we're beyond parody. Here she is, a woman. People are supposedly celebrating the fact that she's a black woman, and she doesn't apparently even know what that is. Like I said, you can't parody this stuff. You can't make this stuff up. It's so absurd. We're in the midst of a time right now where some dude with twig and berries is destroying women in swimming and taking opportunities away from women. I'm gonna tell you right now, that those cases are going to end up in the Supreme Court, and that person doesn't even know what a woman is, or so she says. Finally, critical race theory. I'm gonna try to post these clips and append them to the end of this, so you can just watch them for yourself. But finally, she's asked about her knowledge of critical race theory and whether it's being taught in schools. And I'm going to tell you, if you watch this clip and you don't come away thinking that woman just lied, she just bold-faced lied on TV, then I have serious doubts about your judgment. She was so obviously being dishonest. And this is a side note. I don't really I have a hard time understanding why all of these critical race theory proponents are so afraid to admit that they're into it. I mean, if critical race theory is so good, why don't you just own it? Like, yeah, critical race theory, yeah, I know what it is. I think it's good. I think we should teach more of it. No, what they do is they know that they can't push it on the American people because it's so repugnant on its face that they have to do what they've been doing with every other issue that the left has been pushing for the last 40, 50 years. They introduce it, they pretend that it's harmless, they give you the light version of it, and then the more you acquiesce to their moronic ideas, then they elevate and escalate and escalate and escalate. And now they basically nearly want to put a gun to your head saying, you're going to bake the gay cake and you're going to say that a dude with twig and berries is a woman, or we're going to destroy your life. That's the same thing they did with abortion. Oh, it should be safe, legal, and rare, right? Safe, legal, and rare. And then it was, oh, why should we arbitrarily have restrictions after 3 months, after the first trimester? And then it was, well, it's about women's autonomy. It's autonomy over her body, and she can kill her child even if it's 9 months in the womb. And now they got a bill in Maryland proposing that they can kill their child up to 28 days after it's been born. And then they sitting there talking to you about this abortion is health care. You think they could have sold that to you 30 years ago? No, they sold you the garbage. They were duplicitous and dishonest in their actual goal, but they knew they couldn't sell it to you all in one fell swoop. And while you're sitting there talking about how, yes, queen, oh, black girl magic, that woman, I guarantee you, is going to make a judgment that's going to wreck your life. And you better be glad she wasn't on the bench when they had to make those decisions about whether everyone who didn't take the jab would be fired. And I don't have time to go into all of that. But if you think that just because you agreed with taking the vaccine, that wouldn't have affected you, then you're naive. And I'm sorry for the strong language, but we have got to get to a place where we look beyond a person's outward appearance. I've got a post on my Substack. It's called Me and the Winter Soldier. Go to my Substack, toddthinks.substack.com, and subscribe. And I have a little bit more coherent and organized thoughts there. But I hope you follow me on this journey. I just wanted to weigh in on this. And as always, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Comment below, shoot me a note, and let me know what you think. Till next time, friends, God bless you.